let's go ahead and launch those applications. I'm going to use Lightroom and Photoshop today as well, just so we're all on the same page. And you know you've got the newest version if you see a separate color grade workspace. We've broken the workspaces out here. By the way, let me just throw out a quick keyboard shortcut. 1, 2, 3. Pressing the 1, 2, and 3 keys will switch you between quick edit, detailed edit, and color grading. I hope that that's a nice, easy way, and probably as easy as it could be. If we ever get around to a fourth workspace, we haven't thought of one yet, but if we did, let's say a batch processing workspace, okay, I guess I did just think of that, and we've been talking about it. So that's probably the next one, next workspace we'll unveil, but that would be 4. But for right now, it's 1, 2, 3, and that makes it really easy. And you might have noticed this, but if you didn't, the X key is going to let you toggle between tools. So let's just go ahead and open up a quick image here. I'll take this one. And if I bring that in, you're going to notice here that the X key lets me toggle between those two tools very quickly. Okay. All right. We're going to do some actual editing in a moment, but let me go ahead and just kick things off and get you some cool details, and then we'll explore the tools in depth. And please, any questions into Q&A or chat, love to hear what's on your mind. If you have any feedback, that's great too. So this is normally an exclusive webinar. We do have a product called Radiant Toolkit. It's currently free for the first year, and that's something that you can add on. But then it'll charge you $50 in the future, and that gives you access to webinars. We tend to do them about every 5 to 6 weeks. And it gives you a $15 coupon each month to download extra presets. But because we just shipped a new update, we decided to open this one up to everybody. And we also always make the recordings available to everybody. But the VIP members get to actually ask questions and interact live. So that's that benefit. So my name is Rich Harrington, and it's great to meet you. I am the Chief Product Officer for our company. And so on the photography side, I shoot product photos and time-lapse photography. And I also have an extensive background in video and color grading and color correction. Through the years, I'm a photo educator. I've published about 40 books on photography, including the official Apple Guide to Aperture. I've written a book called Understanding Adobe Photoshop and Photoshop for Video, and also worked on several official books for Apple and Adobe through the years. And probably my best book that I was most happy with was a book called From Still to Motion that focused on DSLR video. And it was a great workflow book to help people really add that to their tool set. So photographers learning about video. But through the years, I've been able to design software and work on different things. I've designed features that are included in Premiere Pro. I've helped the Photoshop team on some stuff like actions. And I've also helped with products like Perfectly Clear, Inmilio, Aurora HDR, Luminar, and very proud that we now have our own company called Radiant Photo. And so Radiant Imaging Labs has released Radiant Photo, and that's a product that some of my friends and I have put together, and we're really excited that you guys are using it. So thanks for coming. So today, you're going to learn about how to use the graduated filter in the finishing tools. While we're in there too, we'll also explore the color grading tab just because it's new, and the two are really closely related together. You're going to learn how to color grade with 2 or 3 zones. This is the benefit of the graduated filter because you can do separate adjustments on the inside versus the outside. Or if you use the linear one, you can adjust the top and the bottom and the middle independently, which is pretty cool. Plus, all of these can be rotated. So it doesn't have to be top and bottom. It can be left and right. It could be a diagonal. It's up to you. We're going to learn how to do some of the fine tuning with those finishing tools. And now that we've got the new workspaces, we think it's going to be a lot clearer the order of operations, which is a fancy way of saying how you should do each step. Now, this is photography. It's creativity. You can do it in any order you want. I'm going to show you today the order it was designed to be run in. But again, you do you. So our company doesn't care how you work, meaning if you want to use this in different ways, we're fine with that. I just want to make sure that you understand the benefit of the tools and you can figure out your workflow that's going to make you happiest. And you're going to learn how to really customize an image and then get it out. Plus, we'll cover what's new in the 1.1 update. So I'm going to launch a quick poll here. This is just going to kind of help us know a little bit about you. It's really simple, just two questions, and then we'll have two more questions at the end. I totally appreciate if you wouldn't mind answering that. It's anonymous, but we just want to know what's on your mind about our product and how you feel. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. So we just shipped update 1, and this changed and added a new tab about color grading. And color grading is how we actually use these tools. Okay. So let me talk to you about what's in there. So first up, you're going to see, we already mentioned some of these. We recently updated RAW and HEIF. We added some control over JPEG export, and you're going to see an improved film strip. We put more stuff into the marketplace just recently, and we made some performance improvements, which is a super positive way of saying we fixed bugs. Thank you for helping to report those. And for those of you that actually work with support, file tickets, first off, we're sorry you encounter bugs. Sometimes there's a myriad of things, everything from like Adobe makes an update that changes something, or your operating system does, or you had some permission error because of some old install you did years ago that's causing certain things not to update. Our support team is there to help you. They try really hard to do that. And we really appreciate you guys digging in. Okay. All right. So we're talking about what we can do here. And so the first part of the color grading workspace is to actually choose a LUT. Okay. And that's going to make it there. If you are, Lou asked a question, and I'll just answer this one really quick. Yes, if you've updated the software and you have not installed those Microsoft components, please do so. Unless you're on Windows 11, then they might already be installed, but you can click the links, and if you already have them, your system will skip that step. Okay. If you're on Mac, there's no need to update your RAW. That's handled by your operating system automatically. I don't know why Windows makes RAW an optional update in this day and age, but at least it works and it's good. So as you can see here, we can choose a different look. And one of the cool things about our looks is that you have independent control over the amount, which is the style aspect of the look, the saturation, which is the intensity or lack thereof of the color, and the contrast, which can be really strong black and whites or a flatter look. So it's up to you. Okay. So this can be done for very subtle options because you can actually blend things back. And so as you see here, you can use different strengths of these to bring them to life. And it really opens up options. And when you really want to get into this, what's really cool is that you can switch on over to the gradient tab where you can actually make more edits and finesse things like the inside and outside or the top and the bottom. And so pretty straightforward. So what we've done here is we feel that this is really the first color grading tool set ever released for photographers. Now, that's not to say that you can't color grade in Photoshop. There's wonderful tools, but we've built a complete workspace to help you through it and make it a guided process so you don't have to feel intimidated. And while other products have shipped and say they have color grading tools, it's usually like 3 color wheels, which are super basic, or split toning. So I think you guys are going to like this. So with color grading, this really has its roots in the filmmaking industry, which is actually an industry I've worked in for several years. So I started in broadcasting as well as being a photographer. I was a rock journalist and I was directing live television. And then I went on to doing lots of different stuff through the years. I own a video production company with a great team of people, and we specialize in doing television commercials for nonprofits. But color grading is where you add mood. Now, color correction is what most people are used to. It's where you fix problems, okay? So color correction is where you can actually fix the problems that you're having with an image. And that's fine, but it's very clinical. Now, that's good because if you're just trying to make an image look totally natural, that's what you're doing. You're color correcting it. But if you want to give an image a certain style, or you're trying to improve its overall look, then what I would suggest is that you take a look at color grading. This is going to allow you to actually fine-tune things and be able to give it a special feeling to really bring it to life. And this is where color is being part of the mood or the narrative. You're trying to make it feel warm or cool, inviting or rigid. Think of an emotion. And actually, that's what you want to do. You want to think about how you want people to feel. And then you want to think about where you want people to look. So the first part of color grading, the looks area, is where we assign the feeling. And then the second part with the graduated filter is where you guide the person's eye by darkening and lighting parts of the image to pull them into the focal point that you've chosen. Now, you might think that you've chosen it within a picture automatically, but like in the case of this picture here, the window was far brighter than the subject. So we needed to not only equalize the exposure, but start to darken the edges around the subject to pull you into his face. Otherwise, your eye doesn't know where to look, and the picture feels like it lacks a purpose. So with these tools, you can really create rich, engaging color. And using the finishing tools as well, you can target some of those colors. You're going to see that you can add a visual style. And you can make incredible black and white. I love black and white photography. When I started my career, I actually owned a music newspaper and we printed, and it was in black and white and it was newsprint and it was wonderful. It was the birth of the internet. We had a website, but I was traveling the Midwest shooting concerts, got to see great people like some of my idols. I sat down with George Clinton. I got a chance to photograph Prince, BB King, be able to cover music like that, but also up and coming bands at the time. But black and white just always had a special feeling to me. So we really have pushed the black and white tool set here, and I'll show you that. But color can be expressive, leaning into color or emotion, or it could just be used to capture attention, to make that picture of food stand out, make it a little bit more enticing, or to add contrast, not just black and white contrast, but color contrast. We do this sometimes by warming one area and cooling another so that we pull people in, or taking the highlights and warming the highlights and cooling the shadows. That's another type of split toning that we can do with these tools. Okay, it can change the feeling of the image, and it can allow you to make very technical and targeted adjustments to just add detail and the right color in the right place. All right. So what we're going to do now is a live edit session. But before I begin, I see that there's one question in the Q&A. If you guys have any other ones too, please pop those in the Q&A. Happy to hear them and tackle them. Would love to be able to answer any of those questions that you have. And we have set this now, so I double check the chat. You guys can chat with each other, so feel free to put anything in there. If you just click the 2, you can send to everyone, and that will allow you to talk about what you're seeing or react or share any other cool resources or things you find inspirational if you know of great outside photographers. Okay. Also, as an aside for all of you who attended today, you might have noticed that yesterday we sent out an email and then we had to send it out again. So it was a long week. Let's just put it that way. We wanted to get everything out and updated, and we had a glitch, but we resent you an email. And in that email, we gave you access to 3 packs and let you pick one. So we told you that you can go out and actually pick one and download those. So you might have noticed that we sent out an email last night. It looked like this. And if you didn't see it, check your inbox. And depending upon where you're in the world, it might have been 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. or the afternoon. But in there, you would find access to a couple of cool things. And that gave you the ability to then download those looks and presets. So looks, I should say. So we have our area of the marketplace. And this is not a shill. This is just me telling you that it exists. If you go over here, this is where you could choose to see just looks. And looks are what we're talking about today. They're recipes for color in black and white. And some of them are made by us and our team, and others are made by specific photographers like Nicole Young, great photographer. We've got Joe Glida here, an experienced food photographer. Matt Kloskowski, great photo educator and photographer and a Sony ambassador who really has some of his own recipes that he's sharing. So you can dig in here and have fun with some of these. And again, if you're a toolkit member, any of the ones that cost $15, you can download each month. But we then set out and released 3 new packs. And we're going to look at some of these today. One was about colors of Mexico. And we really took the time to visit and explore and see what was possible with some of these here. And I'm really happy with the recipes. Sometimes the transformations are subtle and sometimes they're really rich and vibrant. We took a look at rock posters. And I'll give you the backstory on this. found a great exhibit of Pearl Jam posters, just incredible artists who had made all these different types of posters for this amazing band that's had this great legacy. And these were all done with the classic type of, actual ink on page. They were like letterpress style, and they were limited editions. And so I looked at these, we studied the colors, and we studied all these awesome energy things that they had. And then we transferred those to photography. Now, you don't have to just use them on music photos, but you'll see that they're a really strong, vivid, high contrast, or sometimes a little bit subdued. And hopefully that makes sense. And then we also took a look at the market. And while we were in Seattle, we visited Pike's Place Market, and we had a chance to explore and make some looks that were really inspired by the types of colors you find there, or the feeling of timeless black and whites. And so we studied all the stores and the energy there, and we created some cool looks that are just meant to be creative. So that's what that is. And you'll see here, like we have some high con, for example. That means it's a higher contrast version of a look, and I'll show you the difference on those. So I hope that that makes sense. And thank you guys if you didn't do that. But for those of you who actually attended live, we're going to email you after this event a second code each, and you'll be able to actually go and download one additional preset pack from one of those ones we released. So thanks for coming out live. We appreciate that. And also for giving us some feedback today. Okay, I'm going to answer that question and switch on over here to Radiant Photo. So the question says that you decided to do a one-click editing and you're using Lightroom. It's doing a good job, but you're finding it slow when you do a batch. So a handful of things here. We're going to tackle Lightroom, but there's actually a bug if you're on the Mac side, and I don't know if you are, Stephen, but there's a bug with the Mac side of recognizing external editors. So if you visit our community, we've actually posted an article about that. And so if you go on into our technical group, so it's called Technical Questions, we posted an article about that and shared an update about a bug that Lightroom has. And so here it is here, actually, and we also posted it in the main community. And it talks about the need to give Lightroom Classic full disk access so it can actually find things. And the thing is even if you're on PC, you might run into a similar issue if Lightroom doesn't have full permission to access the folders. Sometimes it's really slow to scan. Now, beyond that, Radiant, just to be honest, is doing a lot to your image. You know, when you run Radiant, you're applying upwards of 60 different tools. So if you were to go to Photoshop and run 60 tools on those and run those filters, it could take a while. We've optimized for M1 processors. We're in the process of optimizing for additional types of processing, but having your graphics card up to date, having a good amount of RAM, all of those are things that will definitely speed things up and hopefully give you some better results. And Stephen, I see you're on Mac, so hopefully that will help you. Okay. One thing you could do to judge speed is try loading images in directly and then just hit save and compare the speeds between the two. And we also suggest, and I'll show you later in the Lightroom workflow, you can use the export option. Okay, let's jump in and start to edit now. We've done enough talking. Well, I'm still going to talk, but we're going to start to edit and talk. So let me just open up some things here, and we'll start with some images. And I'm going to open up some ones here that are not edited, but are kind of just out there, right? So let's take a look here, and we'll do some of these. Yeah, those are good. I like those. And let's go here and do some of these too. So, yep, this looks good. Let's start with the TIFF file. And these are some 16-bit TIFFs. And I got a JPEG for good measure. Let's take another TIFF here. And we'll do another JPEG just for challenges. JPEGs are often lacking in details. And we'll open all those up. There we go. And I'm also going to open up something that's portrait aspect ratio. So let's do that here. I just want to show you something that changed in the actual tool strip here. And that is that we updated the film strip. And what you'll see now is that in the film strip, it can properly respond to vertical images. So it does a pretty cool job. And when you do that, come on, open up. There we go. So when you do that, it can actually handle those and properly frame them. So let's open up a couple here that are just some verticals. Okay, there we go. And you'll notice now that instead of having a giant pad on all the sides, those are all now nicely intertwined together, which is pretty cool. Plus, if you didn't notice, we put little controls right on the images. And so this will invoke a save, and this will close the image without saving it. So we added some extra controls there to make it a little bit clearer what's going on. So hopefully that helps. You also may notice this little triangle. That means that the image has not yet updated or been enhanced with Radiant. So when you click on it, you'll see it says making your image radiant, and that's the auto enhance that's running. So if you want to, you can go through. We generally do 3 at a time when you open them, and then we start to load the rest into memory. And you can see there how we're adjusting. So let's start with this image here. And I'm going to go to the quick edit workspace 1. Everyone good so far? Let me know if you have any questions in the Q&A or the chat. And let me just go ahead and close this out. There we go. So first up, when you're in quick edit, I want to get rid of a myth. Quick edit is not for beginners. Quick edit is for people who just want to get things done quickly. So if you are wanting to move through the tool quickly and not have to use all the tabs and tools, that's quick edit. So first up, we have 3 controls here: strength, color, and deep skin tone. Now, deep skin tone is normally disabled unless you have really dark skin tones. And then it's a special adjustment that gets turned on that gives you some independent control so that the skin tones don't become washed out. Color is going to adjust the color within the image independently, and strength is going to be the overall tonal adjustment. Now, you might notice here that we have a split screen, right? You can see the transformation that's happening in the image. Remember, you do have different views. No split screen, side-by-side compare, and you can do Command or Control Plus to zoom in. For example, maybe you like to look at the transformation as you're working, or you can go to that global split screen like so. And if you haven't discovered it yet, you can, move those any split where you want just to see that transformation. Okay, so here, that deep skin tone is really helpful, and having separate control over the color transformation. I'm going to keep the color not so high because I want to be able to color grade this image. Additionally here, within this, I always like to point out that light diffusion is pretty awesome. It effectively softens the light. And so what that's going to do is take harsh shadows, and it's kind of like frequency separation for those of you familiar with portrait retouching. It effectively preserves the detail, but blurs and blends the shadows so you don't have hard shadows. It literally is like diffusing the light, making the light softer with a piece of diffusion, or spreading it through a softbox or natural clouds. It works on all types of photography. Depth is effectively a type of contrast or edge definition. And what it does is it adds richness by filling in some of the blacks and the shadows. And then there's vibrancy. Now, I'm going to skip the detailed edit tools, but remember, 2 is a great shortcut, and now X will toggle you between the 2 tools. By the way, T, if you're in a tool like this, you can actually open and close the group. T for tone, K for color, because C was crop already, and D for details. And then you'll find similar controls there under things like E for eyes, F for face, skin, makeup, etc. So those shortcuts are all in the user manual, but we now have shortcuts to make it easier to keep those tool groups closed and then quickly open and get to it. And that was made for some of you who are working on lower resolution computer screens where you got tired of scrolling. So we want to make it easy to just keep the tools open that you wanted. Okay, let's go to color grade. So first off, in the color grading workspace, the thing that you need to do is choose a look. So looks are powered by lookup tables. This is a LUT. Now, these are widespread in use in the film industry. And what a LUT is it's a complex recipe of color. Now, I'm going to show you something here really quick that's super nerdy, but I want you guys to actually know what this is. And what I'm going to do is show you what a LUT and a LUT editor actually kind of does. And so this is a behind the scene peek. And if you're not a professional colorist or you don't, get into this, you might not have ever really thought about how does that work. So I'm going to open up a LUT editor here. This one is a tool called Lattice. I don't suggest you buy it unless you work professionally in this area because it's really expensive. But it's a professional LUT editor. And I'm going to bring this over here so you guys can see. So this is a real stylistic one. This is from our superheroes pack. And this cockpit scene was inspired by the lighting in the last Avengers movie when Tony was in the cockpit and there was the blue light of space, but the low power of the ship, and it was losing energy. So we looked at that scene and we extracted and kind of came up with a color palette that matched. Now here you can see the before and after. Now this is an unprocessed image underneath. That's why it looks so washed out. That's a separate thing. But here's what's happening. If you look at the cube file itself, we use cubes, but this is a visual representation of what's happening. And you can see how the colors have been kind of squished around, right? Like in the low end of the blues and the purples, the shadows don't have as much of that. So they're lifted up. And then over here in the higher ends, we've kind of pushed the yellows and greens around a little bit. And you can see that transformation. You might be more used to looking at this on a curve. And so you can see here how the blues and greens have been lifted off of the base level of the curve, as well as we've lifted the lowest end point here to really wash out the shadows. And then the reds kind of veer off to get a little bit more repressed. All right, super nerdy, just wanted you to see that so you can kind of understand what was happening. So here we have looks. So let me go ahead here and I'm going to go into some of our film stocks. And so there's lots of options to choose from. And let's go here to the perfectly clear film stocks. And you're going to see different choices. So here's black and white. And I'm going to go color to start. So here, with a click, that recipe is applied. And you'll see different styles. Now, initially, it's not going to be perfect, but this is a good start. I'm really liking warm film. I can toggle that on and off and see the transformation. Let's break down what's happening. The strength is allowing you to double the intensity of the effect or halve it. Cutting in half is what I was trying to say, half it. There we go. So you can dial that in. The saturation is the amount of color transformation that's going to do. So is it going to push the colors further or is it going to repress them? If you were using a black and white look, which we'll talk about later, it does a little bit different. And then contrast is how much richer the shadows are going to get, or are we not going as aggressive? In this scene, it's really high contrast. So I don't want the LUT to add more contrast. So in fact, I'll reduce that a bit, but I like it adding in more color. It's doing a nice job of filling in the scene a bit and adding in some of the life back and giving it the feeling of film. So if I click there on the before and after, you see the initial transformation. But I want to point something out. You are still free to experiment. Look at how I put all these settings in. Now, as I click, those settings are still preserved. I can experiment with different types of film stocks until I find the one that I want or go to a different category. So you'll notice that the strength, saturation, and contrast get set by you. And once you've done that, it's really easy to bounce between some different looks to experiment. Additionally, and this is why these are not presets, if you go and look at the detailed edit, nothing has changed, meaning all the settings are exactly where you left them. Nothing's been added, nothing's been changed, subtracted, modified, etc. So the detailed edits are completely 100% independent of the color grade. And this is really important because you use the detailed edits to color correct, to get the exposure, the things that you want to bring to life. You use the color grade to create the style or the feeling. Okay? Is that making sense? Let me know in the chat if you're following this. I don't want to spend too much time on the theory of it, but I encounter a lot of people who really struggle with this. Okay? All right. So here we go. I see a question. Can you install your own LUTs? Can I use cube files in Radiant Photo? So we don't have an easy way to do that right now, but in our community, some people have shared, and if you look at the user manual, there's some information. We're not making that an officially supported workflow right now because we don't have a tool to make it easy to import or manage them, but you are free to put your own in at your own risk, meaning if it crashes your application, we are not going to provide you tech support to fix it, so you'd have to remove them. We are going to be working on a tool in the future to let you import LUTs and convert them to the exact format that we need, but the short answer is it's a cube file. It needs to be 16-bit, so a depth of 16, and it needs to be in the Adobe/Iridas format and a cube file. And if it is, you could go in, put them into the folder, and actually use them. Okay, cool. Thanks. I'm glad you guys are following this. So let's go to the next tab. Remember, X will toggle you the tools really quickly if you just want to go between. We have two tools in here, the graduated filter and then the finishing tools. Now, if you look at the finishing tools, these are a lot like everybody else's develop tools. And that's by design. So we made them so they would be familiar to you. So you didn't have to learn something all new. So that when you get to the image being almost perfect, right? Like you're so close to being happy, but you just wish this would change. We decided to give you tools that were like the ones you've been using for years: shadows, highlights, vibrance, saturation, contrast. We did that to make it easy. That's the bottom line. But you shouldn't be using these up front to develop your image. That's why they're called finishing tools. For the love of God, use the other AI tools and the automatic exposure and the depth and the contrast tools that we have up front, because those do incredible things. Those select the problem areas of the image and enhance them differently. Like it was able to fix the exposure on his face while independently fixing the sky and calculating the right exposure for you. Use them, okay? Don't sit here and fuss with these too much. These are just for the final tweaks at the end. But I do want you to take a look at the graduated filter. Now, we have some simple presets. Let's start with one, the light portrait vignette. Not bad, but it's not perfect yet because it's going dead center. But my subject isn't dead center. So why would I guide your eye to the exact middle point of the image right here, looking at this empty space over his shoulder? Don't do that. Instead, click the Place Center button and drag the center to where you want people to focus. So here, I want you to kind of focus in more towards his face. I'm not going to put it right in the center of his face because that would make a lot of bright area over his head and really put the lower part of the body in sort of shadows. But I'm going to put it kind of towards his chin area. So when you use that place center there, you can kind of decide where that point is going to be placed. It's a really useful tool, right? So cool. Timothy's question, color grade settings are set first, right? Opposite order. Color correction is set first. Use the quick edit or the detailed edit first, or both, and then use your color grade. By the way, make some room for yourself. While you're working, close that tab. Feel free to close this, get it out of the way, and have a bigger image to focus on so you can really see what you're doing. Cool shortcut, by the way, Shift tab will let you cycle between right panel open, left panel open, both panels open. So Shift tab is a great keyboard shortcut just to kind of do that. So you don't have to go all the way over here and click and all the way over here and click. You can tell that everyone on the team has had carpal tunnel syndrome from using computers too much as they've had to do like editing deadlines. So we tried to put some useful shortcuts in there just to make things a bit easier. Okay, cool. So Harrison and Joshua, I think I answered your question about could you use your own LUTs? I gave you the official, unofficial answer. Like I gave you the right information, but we don't officially support them yet, but feel free to do it. There's others in the community who are, and it's on our roadmap to make it easier for you to load your own in the future. So totally fine. All right, we got this here. Now let's look at this. Next, after I did that, I've got shape. Do I want it to be an ellipse or a linear? Linear is usually going to be more for landscape, and ellipses are more for people and products. So I'll choose this. Now, the key here is that when you start this, it's overdone. It's always overdone. And I'm going to teach you how to fix that, but we do it at the end. It's easier to start with something too strong of an edit and then fade it back. That way, you don't have to listen to internet trolls, or at least less often. Or they say, oh, nice vignette, or oh, you really over edited, or you don't know what you're doing. You're using an AI tool. Whatever. You do you and edit how you like, but I'll show you how we can compensate for the human tendency to overdo it because we like what we're doing. We push it a bit too far. Let's talk about shape. Shape is the shape of the vignette or the ellipse. So notice here how I can angle that to be more in the shape of my subject and not so round. I can also rotate that to match his body a little bit better because his body's kind of going a little bit down here, just a little bit with that shadow going off of his shoulders. So I want to follow that shadow a bit. And then I could adjust the size of the vignette as well as the amount of feathering. Hard edge, don't worry about that pixelization. That's just a preview. Or really soft edge. I generally go softer. Now, everything you do is inside and outside. So on the inside here, I'm not going to change things too much. I'm just going to put a little lift to the shadows on the inside, put a little bit more light there on the body. And so you see how the fabric in his robe lifted up a little bit. Where I'm going to do most of this is on the outside. So exposure, not bad, a little dark. I'll go just a touch lighter, maybe -20. And a little less contrast because it was getting a little too contrasty for me. Again, totally subjective. I like the highlights where they are. Shadows, not bad. Whites are okay. I'm going to tone down the color though. I don't want the outside edges to be as rich in color. So I'm going to take color vibrance to about -10, maybe -20. And again, totally subjective. But what it's doing is it's taking some of the color out at the edge so that the more rich colors are in the face and it pulls your eye there naturally. Now down here, you're going to see that we have separate LUTs. This is the Sky Enhance LUT, the Foliage Enhancer LUTs. The Sky Enhance is not a tool that just selects the sky, but it's targeting the blues that you see in skies. And the Foliage Enhancer is designed to go after the greens and the browns and the yellows. Don't generally use these on people, but they're great for landscape photos. I like this where it's going. Now I'm just going to troll down a little bit and say, you know, it's good. I just want to put a touch more contrast in. 5, just a little bit more edge. And globally, I feel like the vignette's a little strong. Well, first up, notice 2 awesome things. You have a blend slider. This blend slider lets you blend back the vignette all the way to 0 and then start to inch it forward. So if it felt too strong, which it almost always does once you start to study it, blend it back. That's why we have a blend slider. It lets you back off your vignette because you don't want somebody to ever say, nice vignette. You want it to be subtle. Then the develop slider is an uber slider, an exponential slider. What it does is it takes everything you had under detailed edit in the first tab, develop. And if you move it to 110, it increases your other sliders by 10%. So something that was at 20 goes to, like 22, and something that was at a different value, they all move in relation to each other. So if you felt like, wow, that was close, but it needed just a little more, I could just inch that up a little bit and notice how my develop bumped up a little bit to balance it. And great transformation. I'm real happy with that. But you don't have to be done here. I would suggest you turn on your clipping indicators. Oh, look at that. See? These, by the way, added a keyboard shortcut for it, J. It's the same shortcut as Photoshop. Don't ask why it's J. It's just always been J in other tools, so we just left it there. I'm sure there's a history. But this is showing you areas, red, where they're blown out, where there's a lack of detail in those highlights. And blue, sorry for the siren in the background, blue is where the shadows are getting a little crushed. So this is an opportunity to look at things and say, let's look at those shadows there just a bit. I'm going to lift that ever so slightly. And I'm going to put just a gentle lift into the black point a little too. Now, it's okay to have some. And, maybe the highlights need just a little bit more recovery. Again, we have a very aggressive tool to indicate not just pure blown out, but warning you that there's a little bit of blown out or the potential. So it's okay to have a little bit of that in there, especially where there's a bright sun hitting his face there. It's supposed to be blown out. But now we don't have things as crushed in the shadows. By the way, this came up the other day, and someone said, if the face doesn't look right, can I lighten or darken the face? And we don't have a face light tool. I got to say, I like the one in Luminar. Helped work on it, actually. But it's on our ideas of looking at again. But here's one. We do have makeup. So if your face is not selected, you can still manually add faces. So if it didn't detect the face, you could manually add it. Then we do have makeup. And this is surprisingly useful. So for example, here, I can go to the face and say, only tone the face, and then twirl down my foundations. And these are classic makeup colors. Hey, warm the face a little bit. And now that gives me this ability to just tone the face, making the face warmer or less, or making the face paler, for example. See how we're like gently adding. Now that's not gentle. I took it to 100, but let's do warm and just a little bump of about 30. And what I did there was I just gently warmed the face a little bit with the equivalent of digital makeup, and it went only on the face. Or you could do full body and it will actually do the neck and the hands now. So that gives you that flexibility, okay? And when you want to be done with the image, this is what we call full view editing. You're going to notice that in the upper right corner, you have a develop slider and the color grade slider. This lets you tweak and say, you know what, put a little bit more of that LUT back in. Go ahead and add that back. I like that. Oh, let's, open up or pull back the develop settings. With no distractions, with not all these tools open, you can use two Uber sliders. The develop one is going to control your detailed edit develop tab, and the color grade one is controlling the look. The intensity of the look, not the saturation or contrast, those stay locked, but this makes it really easy. You can remove all the distractions and just finesse it with these two sliders at the very end. All right, let me tackle some of the questions, and we're going to go into some totally different types of images, but let me know, is this making sense? Do you guys like this approach? Do you understand how to use these? I hope it's something seems like fun and possible. Okay. All right. So let's see here. With beginning with Radiant, sure, Lou, we have some videos in the community. I would really suggest you check that. And so we will re-put the community link out. There's a bunch of getting started videos there, and we're actually recording some more this weekend now that we've got the new interface done. So hopefully that will help you. And then, of course, there's also the manual if you prefer to read. Joshua, you asked, is there a way to adjust the amounts other than the slider? It's hard to do increments. So you can click on a field and type in a number. And I'm familiar with like the gear down sliders that some tools have. That's something we want to do in the future of adding some key modifiers to make these less sensitive when you're dragging. So that's great feedback. But you can click on a field and type in a number, and you can use the up and down arrow keys there like that in a field. So I hope that makes sense, Joshua. Did that give you what you wanted? I hope so. So let me know if that actually addressed your issue, and hopefully it did. And then you want to understand how to do a non-destructive workflow from Mylio. All right. We're not going to dig deep into Mylio, but the answer there is it's always non-destructive. Mylio does not let you send the original file, or you're working with raw. If you mean you want to be able to come back, Mark, and resume your edits in Radiant, then here's one way of doing that. Well, there's two ways. One is Photoshop Smart Objects. The other is this. You can make your own presets. So just look at the image, backlit portrait, for example, and come down to your regular presets section. Make a new folder for your presets or for an edit session, right? And you can actually, go ahead and add a group, and it's going to put that in your list, and then you can start to work with it, right? Enter a group name, and I'll just call this, session December 17th. There we go. And then simply choose at the bottom of the edit panel, save a custom preset. Choose your group. You can choose your edit session in that case. And you can dig in, but there we go. Use whatever you want. Choose to make a new preset. In this case, I'll call it backlit portrait. There we go. And by the way, because of the AI, I can reuse this on other backlit portraits and hit save. And now all of those edits were stored in there. You could see it as a thumbnail or as a list, but that's one way of doing it. We are not going to become an asset manager where you keep a catalog of images and all your edits. That's not on our roadmap, but you do have the ability to work as Photoshop Smart Filters if you want to do that. And that's a great workflow. Or you could just save presets like this so you can reuse them or go back to the original image and pick up in the future. And you can have as many presets as you want. And if you don't want to keep this cluttered up here, you can actually select a group of presets, and we give you the ability to both export and import your groups here. So it's really easy to save those, and you can put them in the folder and everything else. So it's kind of a more manual way of making a more advanced XMP file because it has a lot more settings in it than XMP supports. Okay, let me do another image and then we'll come back to some more. Bill, you're asking if the manual's been updated? Partially, because that's on me. And we had to get the product out. But we've put the 2 shortcuts in there. We've added some information in there. And over the next couple of days, we'll be putting more stuff in there and then officially say that the manual's updated. But it's about 2/3 updated right now, and there'll be more in there. Let me go on to another image. Okay. So let's go forward here. Let's do a classic architecture image here. This will be fun. So first up, I'm going to use a preset here because we have some different options. And I don't currently actually have it loaded, but a fun one that I would suggest is Randy Van Duinen made some great architecture presets that you can use. But I'm going to just use a landscape preset to start here. And I'm going to say, let's do a little bit of outdoor light. I like that. And looking at the strength and color here, I'm going to dial that in. I like a little bit more color, but I don't want too much going into the whites there. So just a little bit of warmth and the strength. Let's go to the detailed edit tab here. We're doing a calculated exposure. I don't need it to be face aware, so it won't really make a change here because there's no face. And look at it. The low exposure didn't actually change the exposure because this image was already properly exposed. So it didn't need to bump it up. So low just said, I think it's okay now. And it was smart enough to skip it. Light diffusion and depth, though, are great here. And look at how they're really improving some of that area. And then don't be afraid of skin and depth bias. It's confusingly named, but it basically refines where the depth goes. So here you could say, oh, you know what? Focus on the brighter areas or do an auto guess. But I really like the brighter areas here because look, that prevented some of those areas from getting as color cast because it really focused on pushing the whites and the blacks there in the bright zones. So depth bias is awesome. So this is skin bias for the skin tools over in Portrait and depth bias for the depth tool. That's what it means. It's not skin versus depth. It's letting you target the skin and the depth and, normal or bright or an auto balance. Does that tool make sense? It's one of our nerdiest tools, but it's really cool when you've got high contrast areas. Okay, let's color grade. So here, I like this image, but I'm going to start with a look. And so there's lots of great options, and you can explore these and you'll see different flavors and choices. Now, I like some of these here. Like I like the early blue. I like it feeling that it's not warm sun right here, but that it's like early in the morning and we got the blues coming in. Or maybe I want the warmth coming in. You see how that's putting the gold of the sunlight into those white surfaces. So these will emphasize things. Now, I have most of the looks loaded. You won't have as many choices. You will if you spent a lot of money. But if you're a Toolkit member, you can download a new pack each month. And again, this year, Toolkit is free right now. So you can get a year's worth of free presets and looks from the Essentials collection. And if you guys were late, check your email box last night. We gave you 3 to choose from that were really robust. So for example, in the urban market here, you could see like blue light. And I like this one too. Like that's actually working really good. So you can see how it's got that bright blue light. And this was made outside of like shooting architectural shots around Pike Place Market in Seattle, where you had all the water plus the diffused clouds, because you're like always clouds in the sky. And we had this nice diffused but bright sunny day, but it had a blue feeling, not a yellow or gold feeling. So I like that. We'll just balance that out there. It feels pretty good. Now let's go to the graduated filter. This time, I'm going to use the linear one, not the radial one. Now there's presets here. If you click, you'll see, oh, blue sky and field. That boosts the blue and boosts the greens. Different ones here, right? But I'm just going to go with a basic linear gradient and start with the top. But before we do, let's get it right. So you'll see here, we could adjust the size. And I'm going to put this together and take the feather down. So on its own, if there's no feathering and the size is pulled back, you basically have a top and a bottom. But as you adjust the size, you're creating an opening. So now you have a top, a clear zone in the middle, and a bottom. The clear zone is unaffected. It uses everything you already set in the other areas. It's like the unaffected area. And then, of course, blend it, right? So this will make it really easy here to create a nice graduated filter at the top and at the bottom. So on the top here, I say, let's do a good graduated adjustment, right? So I can, if I need to, sometimes you might have to twirl those open and closed, but that'll kind of let you look at it and say, I like that. Go ahead and by the way, you'll notice now we fixed it. If a tool's off and you click on it, it will actually set the point right where you click. So we had that on some of the tools. Now you should find that on all the tools. So you can click on an area. Like I say, hey, a little lower contrast there. I just click on the slider where I want, and it sets it and it turns the tool on. That's good. And let's not pull the shadows down quite as much. So I'll lift those. And I just like it. It's creating a nice little transition there in the sky, pulling us in. Then on the floor here, I want to look at the bottom. And I say, I do want that a hair darker at the bottom. It's in the shadows, not a lot, but I'd like it to not be so contrasty. So let me reduce the contrast there so it's not so intense. And I'll pull the blacks down so they're crisp, but lift the shadows. So what I really did there was a targeted shadow highlights adjustment on the bottom area here where we had all of this stuff going on, where you can see that. So, you can see if we look at the split screen here, how we've really toned that differently. We took this washed out floor and created a series of rich shadows, and we got the top. Of course, like always, we overdid it. In this case, I'll just be honest, I overdid it, which is why you have a slider called blend. Always blend. Blend always. Blend frequently. Blend often, right? Just back it off a little bit, and you still have the feeling of what you wanted with that vignette. Oh, I want the floor to not be so intense, and I want a little bit of gradation at the sky to make it more visually interesting, and then a nice clear area, and you're good. And then if you needed to, we could even angle that a little bit to match what we're doing there to create a nice transition, right? And then we have our overall develop tab. So I could bump it up or down very easily by just moving that single slider there, and I'm tweaking all of my develops. Okay, you can see there a great transformation. And if you needed to, remember, we also have some incredible black and whites. So in those packs that you downloaded, if you chose one of the ones, they all have some fun black and whites in them too. So you'll see some of these different things that you can choose from, like Faded Dream, high contrast, or old green print, for example. And that's going to give it a nice feeling. Just take that up to the 100 zone or so, and you'll see that now you've got this sort of greenish tint of a black and white image. Or we have entire black and whites that are all in our essentials collection. So black and white film and other ones. Now, some of these are going to do different things, targeting different areas. So you want to experiment as you look through and find the ones that are targeting the area that you want to target, right? So you can explore those and find different recipes. And again, since they're targeting different zones, look for one that works best with your image. Now that I've done this, I really like it, but I want to use the targeted adjustments. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to bump up the contrast now because it's a black and white shot. So I like a little bit more contrast at the bottom. Cool. And I want to come down here and actually put a little bit more black in at the top, right? I'll put those blacks down just a bit. And this may sound strange, but use things like your saturation, because what that's going to do is allow you to target things. So for example, if I bump up the saturation underneath the black and white photo, it's actually making it a little bit richer. And you can use things like, hey, adjust the top here and use one of the sky enhancers. And it's still targeting that sky enhancer and allowing you to really finesse that a little bit just to blend that in. And so there we go. Nice transformation. And of course, you can finish that all off with those finishing tools. Let's just press G for graduated filter and F, there's face. So I didn't mean that. Let me go back to color grade 3. I forget what the finishing tool shortcut is. I'll have to look that up, but there we go. A little more contrast. And I'm going to split this, pull the blacks down, gently lift the shadows a similar amount. There we go. Great black and white conversion. So I hope that this is understandable. We're going to do a couple more edits, but I want to take a few more questions here. We're technically at the time. So if you want to stay longer, we're just going to keep doing a few more edits and it'll be interactive. We can answer any questions that you have, but it's now going to be, I'm going to hang out for like an extra half hour. We advertise this as an hour-long event. We've covered the core info on all these tools now. Now we're just going to get into contextual stuff of like what happens with different types of photographs. So you can see some of the cool things we can do. All right. So you knew about the number with the wrong key. There you go. Oh, you're doing left and right. Yeah, that makes sense too, Joshua. Up and down. Okay. And the folder for the cube files, Joshua, you'll find that in our user manual. It's different for Mac and Windows. And it's easiest if you follow the directions in the user manual. We have a thing that says, where are your looks stored? Where are your presets stored? And that's so you can go in and manually add things or remove things or back them up so that you can protect any of the things you purchased. Okay, before you leave, I want to put one more poll up if you guys are wrapping up here. So let me just close this poll. And I want to open up this next poll and get your feedback, and then we'll do a little bit more editing. So this also just has 2 questions, and I totally appreciate it if you guys can let us know what you thought about the webinar and the style and how you're feeling about the color grading workspace. Also, feel free in the chat if there's a burning feature request or something on your mind to list it. Not tech support, guys. We have tech support people. And believe me, while I'm super technical, I don't really understand computer logs, and I don't know how to go in and fix Windows permission issues. That's why the support team does. I know how to design software. I know how to be a photographer. I know how to color grade. But sometimes you just have technical issues that are tied to computer problems that can affect your software. And sometimes we have bugs, and either way, we have to get those logs and work with you. And that's how we do our bug fixes is, it's working collaboratively with you. This is actually our 5th update we've shipped, and we only shipped the software at the very end of August. So we've shipped 5 updates in 5 months. So we're trying to be a responsive company, and we really want you to feel comfortable believing in us. And we appreciate all the stuff that you guys do in our community. So if you're not a community member, let me just point that out. You go to communityradiantimaginglabs.com. You'll find tutorials. You can look at different things here. So like if you click on a group, you'll see a bunch of different tutorials posted, right? And so this will help you explore a little bit. You can see recordings from past webinars. So you can jump in and find some of those. You'll find frequently asked questions. There's a group for that for technical questions, right? So you can dig in and find what you want. And there's even some groups you can join, like a before and after group, for example, right? And so you can join some of those groups. Okay. All right. And early access is not a beta group, so you don't get jealous. That's for people who pre-ordered the software. We're not active there very much anymore, but that's where we communicated with people before we shipped. So that's what that is. So don't worry about it. And you can see here that we actually get notifications when people comment, and we will try to respond. So here's somebody who has a word, however, which is code that I should go have a glass of water or beer before I look at it. All right, let's go back to doing some cool stuff. And that's community.radiantimaginglabs.com. Or if you're in our app, it's really simple. Help, product guide, help, community, get support. Okay. And terms of use, the things we legally have to tell you if you really want to know about how your data is used and us as a company. Okay. We're really not secretive, but it's all there. Let's do some more editing and have some fun here. And thank you guys for giving us some feedback here on the workspace. Okay. All right. So let's go in here. And for those of you who said you've told other people about Radiant, we totally appreciate that. We were super honored. We actually found out that we were nominated for Best Plugin from the Lucy Awards, and we didn't win. That's okay. We lost to Adobe's Frame.io technology, which isn't a plugin, but that's okay. Adobe also won Best Video Editor and Best Photo Editor. Yeah, their resources are resources, but still, for a company that only came out this year, that we've been really passionate about, but for a product less than 6 months old, we were totally honored to be one of only 3 products nominated. So we're going to go with we got the honorable mention. And I don't know, but we told our wives, they thought it was cool. So hopefully you guys think it's okay too. All right, let's do a portrait, and I'll do one that you guys haven't seen before. This one will be fun. So we got a great sort of senior portrait here, senior like in high school, yearbook type of thing like that. Okay. All right. So here we go. And thank you, Joe, for coming. I appreciate it. No problem if you have to go. We're recording stuff, so you can check it out later. So here, the smart preset was applied. It was a person. Therefore, Radiant said people. Good job, Radiant. So, versus people on a white background, people at night. If I look at that here under quick edit, I can finesse things, right? Deep skin is going to do nothing because this isn't deep skin tones. This is like the opposite of deep skin tones. So don't try to use it. And in this case here, that's fine. I'm going to put a little bit of light diffusion there, and look at how it just softened those shadows, right? We went from really harsh shadows to nice, gentle shadows, which really even things out. And a little bit of depth here, a little definition, and that brings out those edges. And now we see just that great contrast in the hair. And because everybody always wants it, there's just a touch of vibrancy. Don't go too high on vibrancy. This is like the only tool here in Quick Edit that can hurt you. The other ones are very, very gentle. Vibrancy by its very nature is better than saturation, but don't overdo it. Under the detailed edit here, let's just do a couple of portrait things really quick, and then we'll color grade this. First up, if you click on a face, it immediately zooms to the face so you can see it. That's really useful when you have a bunch of people in a group shot. And remember, if you say they didn't find the face, you can manually add it. Skylum doesn't have that. Most tools don't have that. We knew it was important that because not if, but when AI fails, okay, I know AI fails. It works way more often than it doesn't, but it's not perfect. That's why we let you manually add a face, because we wanted it there in case it failed. But you can click and it zooms in. So let's do the eyes first. And I'm going to do a little eye enhance. And what that does is sharpen and brighten the eyes. I like that. And then let's just take some of those dark circles out. We don't have to all the way overdo it there, but what it does is it keeps the skin. It just removes some of the pooled blood that you get, or the harsh shadows from overhead light. This is age. I don't think this kid doesn't get enough sleep. It's probably just the outdoor light. The light's a little higher. It's creating some shadows on the face, particularly in these lower areas. All right, that's cool. Let's just finish off the skin gently. In this case, we're going to do a little bit of skin tweaks. And so I'm going to look at his skin. I'm going to smooth it, but I'm going to use subtle just on the face and a touch of blemish removal. And then this one's really important, and you won't understand it, but let me explain what's happening. So cameras are sensitive to heat. And so skin tones, when you're outdoors, and you're under warm light, or you've been exercising, or you're at a wedding thing and grandpa's been drinking, your pores are going to be letting heat out. Well, that heat gets turned into red splotchiness by a camera. That's why we have infrared removal. And what that does is it takes out that red splotchiness and just evens out some of that splotchiness there in the skin tones. So you can see that we made some nice subtle adjustments here that are still more than appropriate for the age of this subject, blended back some of those blemishes on the skin, and still preserved all the detail in the hair. All right, Z, by the way, is a great shortcut to toggle you from zoom to fit. All right, now let's go to color grade. I didn't want to make this about the other tools. I just wanted you to see, if you hadn't played with them yet, what some of those little hidden things did, okay? All right, so now under color grade, let's have some fun. Youth and energy, they're often really open to do some cool things. So I'm going to go to that one pack, that this Colores de Mexico. So I actually made this pack. And this summer, I had a chance to spend 2 weeks in California. I went to tons of museums and cultural events around the Hispanic community and the Mexican community. And I also previously had a chance to visit lots of places in Mexico. So we took a lot of those photographs. We studied them for the colors that existed. We looked at different styles and prints, and what did posters look like faded on the side of the building? What colors were the architecture? And we used that to build in a bunch of recipes around the color palettes that you find, both in the landscape and the lighting conditions and the products, but we also studied artwork from artists there. And so about half of these are inspired by different artwork. We looked at the artwork, we studied the colors, we took references of things and really simplified it down to the dominant color palettes to bring that forth. And we studied which colors were used in that art. So let's take a look at some of these. Look at how it just immediately takes on a different feeling. Now, again, it's strong. We're at 100. We're going to blend this, but this is a great place to start. And sometimes we have these really rich greens. So a lot of times in this culture, greens, the color of life, are brought in. But sometimes it's a bluish green, right? Or different lighting conditions. Bronze, browns. These are some of the dominant color palettes that you're going to see. And we translated those into some really rich black and whites. I love some of these black and white recipes. We spent a lot of time making these. I mean, when we make one of these looks packs, just so you know, this looks pack has got like 59 things in it. This was like a week's worth of work. So these have all been fine-tuned. We go in, we make sure that they're not clipping, that they're not flattening out color. Most of them won't posterize unless that's part of the design. So we try really hard to make sure that they work as you go from image to image. All right. Let me know. Why don't you guys who are here just quickly let us know, black and white or color. We'll see how quick you guys are in the chat, and we can do either. We can do a black and white look, or we can do a color portrait. So we'll see what you guys respond. We got one for color, color, color. One for black and white. All right. Apparently color people type faster than black and white people. So here's what, we'll do both. Let's do color first, then black and white. So as you see here, it's really fun to be able to see all these recipes, right? To be able to browse and lean into ones. And these are just meant. So here's one that has a little bit of a caramel feeling, right? Different palettes, a little bit of a feeling of orange, and just different lighting conditions or cool colors, right? And so as you play with these, remember, chances are you're not going to use them at 100. So instead, blend it back, right? Take the strength down a little bit. Then look at your saturation. Do you want the color to really transform or to subtly transform? But in this case, with this brick and this clothing, I want a nice contrasting feeling. Now I'm going to be really simple and just put a basic vignette on here. Let's go with the light portrait vignette. One click will take me there. And I'm going to move that center to about his chin, maybe his lips there, pull you right in. Let's look at the shape. Make it a little more oblong. The size, that's good. And I'm going to back that off just a bit. So now if I toggle that off, and by the way, we fixed a bug where you weren't able to toggle these on and off before without losing things. Now you can toggle it on and off and it won't reset. That was a bug. Thank you for helping us find it, and some of you for helping us test it. But I like where this is going. Now I can go back to the color grade here and just experiment. I can click on different color grades and then hit save and then make another one. So if I just want to experiment here, look at how I can try out all these different color feelings very quick and easily. And just hit save after each one. Save, make the next one, save. And you're going to be able to export those and show a client or show the subject or post to social media 5 or 6 variations and get some feedback. But this is a lot of fun because it's really easy here. Remember, when you apply the color grade, nothing under detailed edit changed. The exposure is not changing here. The facial adjustments aren't changing. These are not presets. I freaking hate presets, guys. I don't mind the presets on the left, the smart presets, and we have regular presets because they are useful. But in general, I got to tell you, I watch people like shell out money for Lightroom presets and buy all these big packs. And it's so frustrating because they apply a preset and it only works like 1 image out of 10. And then they just have to sit there moving all the sliders around over and over and over. This is why we broke it apart. The auto smart presets do a great job. And remember, you have 3 categories of smart presets. You have subtle for photos that were already edited or gentle editing. You have pro to be more aggressive for raw files. And you have smart presets where you can actually save your own smart presets that are automatically used. You can train the AI. But I like this here. And so now as I'm experimenting with those different color grades, I'm free to try out different recipes and can very quickly audition these and just find things that work. Now, you really hopefully feel how we leaned into the brick, the texture, and his skin tones, and brought this to life. Now, let's do some black and white. So here we go. If you're going to do black and white, you don't have to do it at 100%. Sometimes a low strength like this is kind of cool. Or leave it at 100, but go down to the saturation controls here, and you can play with that transformation. See? And maybe you want lower contrast or higher contrast, right? And so you can see how that's transforming things. And remember, this may sound strange for portraits, but under the detailed edit, don't be afraid of the makeup tools. If you're going to do that black and white conversion, you can totally go in and target the face. And I can say, you know what? Go ahead and let's tan that face a little bit or warm that face a little bit and dial that in. And it's going to separately target the skin tones there just a little bit, which is nice. If you need to, make sure the face was selected. It was, so we're good. And that could let you target those just a bit more. Oh, before I leave this tool, let me turn that checkbox off. Okay. Now, different recipes here and different black and whites. Again, the contrast slider is going to be tremendously effective on the black and whites. And in this case, it's almost black and white. It's 85% black and white. There's just a hint of color, which is a wonderful modern technique, especially because we see this in action movies and flashbacks where it's rarely pure black and white. But if you need a pure black and white, go for a pure black and white. And all of these are some of those great recipes you can lean into. And again, want more contrast? Independent control over contrast, or back it off for a flatter look. These are the components. Strength is the style. Saturation is the presence of color in the color grade, and contrast is the richness of the shadows and the highlights. And so you can just fly through here and experiment going from look to look to look. And I hope that that's fun. So did all of you get this idea here with color and black and white workflows? Do you see how much fun color grading is? It like blows away just applying a dumb black and white preset or stripping out the color, because you can just have so much more feeling. Okay, cool. I hope you guys are having some fun with this. We're going to do one more image. Now, remember, if it's not working for you, you can always tweak. And so as you lean into something here, you still have those finishing tools. So here I'm going to say, you know what? I like this, And that's a nice olive color. It's so, this olive in black and white, but I want just a subtle hint of the olive. So let me just blend that back. And then with my finishing tools here, I just want to do a little more highlight recovery. And so I could go after those skin tones and pull them down, and then just a gentle lift to the shadows. What a great transformation. I really love the feeling here, and black and white is so much fun. Okay. All right. So what's the workflow if you use Lightroom? Does the image color correction in Radiant save back to Lightroom? So yes. So Radiant is a pixel enhancer. So basically, Lightroom is an image organizer with a cool set of masking tools and a fairly standard set of editing tools. It's popular, but it's not doing anything like this where it's making really targeted adjustments. You can choose when you're in Lightroom to send an image on over. So if I'm here and I was doing some work inside, I got two ways of doing it. So if you want to send images from the product to Radiant, here's what you can do. Now, I've already sent some of these, but let me just do this set here. We'll select those. First up, if you intend to edit them by hand in Radiant, then you could say edit in and choose Radiant Photo, and Lightroom is going to give you a choice. And it will decide, do you want to send a copy with your Lightroom adjustments? Hey, these are raw files. We have to make new TIFFs. Or if you're concerned about space, it's there, but they only support PSD, JPEG, and TIFF, right? And you can choose the bit depth. 16 is much higher quality. It sends it to Radiant. You work with them. When you're done, you click Save All. They immediately go back to Lightroom, and they get stacked like this where you see them together. But if you're in a hurry, we also have this awesome workflow, which sometimes I use instead of the photo edit workflow because it's actually faster. And you can go here and say Export. And under the export module, you could choose Radiant Photo. Now, if you want, you can use presets. Hey, go ahead and use my system presets or use my preset folder, right? And you could choose from your own presets there that you've installed. And so you'll see all the presets that you've created or other ones there for system presets. They're all going to be in this list. So you can use those. Or you can say, hey, you know what? Just send it over and do the AI edit there, AI Radiant Photo Pro or Radiant Photo Subtle. And you can tell it that you don't even want to see it. If you hide Radiant Photo, it'll literally pass it in the background and then pass it right back to Lightroom without ever putting Radiant Photo in the foreground. It'll just apply the auto enhance. So if you're in a hurry or you just want to get things, basically fixed as a pre-processing module, you can do that. Or at the very end, if you want to do advanced things, here, let's just do that. We're going to say, hey, Radiant Photo Pro, go ahead and pass it off, hide the Radiant workflow, go ahead and put them into the same folder, stack them, put it above. That's great. And then I could say, what type of file do I want, right? And color space and everything else. And I click Export. And basically, Radiant launches in the background and Lightroom starts to run. You can see there, it says processing with Radiant Photo. And it generated the enhanced image and it just stacked it with the original. So here we go. If we take a look, and now they've updated. So there's the enhanced, there's the original. I didn't have to do anything other than let Radiant have it. And that's what it's capable of doing, right? Like it can actually do that in the background, totally automated. Here's the enhanced, here's the original, right? There, it says it's all done. So, I was able to step through that. And so here, let's just take a look at all these, right? So this was done, well, that was actually doing some replacement, but here we go. You could see the enhanced and the before, enhanced before. So all of these were just done with the auto Radiant setting and, handed those off. So in all cases, that was like lazy person editing. You didn't want to tweak, you just felt like getting a better image to begin with. And it stacked them in with Lightroom. So hopefully that makes sense. Lou, we got videos on that. We got a whole manual section, so that'll take you deeper, but that's how you could pass that. And then Photoshop, of course, runs as a filter. So you also can send from Lightroom to Photoshop or other tools that way. And earlier we had a question about Mylio photos. I love Mylio photos. This is how I'm actually organizing my images these days. I'm actually also helping the Mylio team with their product. Love what they're doing. It's a great image organizer, and it syncs all your devices. So at home here, I've got 470,000 photos in my entire library. By the way, there's some of those Pearl Jam posters I mentioned earlier. But I can also seamlessly connect all my devices. And so you'll see that, like, if I go to devices here, I've got, all these different machines connected. So I have one unified photo library that stays in sync across all my devices, which is cool. And I could back up to vaults, which makes sure I won't lose anything. And I can access these on my iPad and my phone and my Android phone. So it's a universal photo library that keeps everything in sync. And whenever you need it from any one of those devices, you could pull down the raw file or work with a small DNG file. So on my iPad, I've got 500,000 photos, fully editable, fully searchable with metadata. So some cool stuff there. And the Radiant team and the Mylio team have been working on some cool things. All right. So if you were here, it's the same idea. And you can do this with other tools as well. So if you're working with something like On1 or Capture One, they also support external editors. So Radiant can be used with any one of those type of external editors. So you can hand an image off. So for example, let's go here to the beach and let's enhance this portrait. So I can say photo, open with, and choose. And other applications do this too. You can always hand off to Radiant Photo because we work as an actual standalone editor. Like you'll see that Luminar doesn't appear in this list because Luminar is another asset manager. It doesn't want you to edit and then export. So I'll just open it up in Radiant, and I could choose to edit the original or edit a copy with the adjustments. I'm going to pass that on as a raw file. So I click continue, and basically it's handed off into Radiant Photo. What a great change to the lighting there without affecting the blown out areas. I just love what it was able to do. Now, if I look at this here, it didn't detect a face. And let's be honest, there's no eyes to detect. That's why I can't find it. And I don't really even need it. But if you insisted, you could still force this and say, hey, there's an eye here and approximately there. And so that way you could go in and still use some of the skin smoothing tools if you wanted it. Or in this case, with that really bright light, I'm going to pull down the infrared and I'll do the full body there. And you can see that we're still able to improve the skin. So you can outsmart AI. So there you go. I love where this is going. And let's go to color grade right away here. So in this case, we got these warm colors and light. I like where this is going. We're in a tropical location. So I'm going to go to the tropical summer pack. And there's some different options here. So with these clicks, you can see different recipes that you can play with. And these are inspired by Island. I just love that there. So the summer days, that's not bad. Got some fun options in here, brick. Okay, so you can experiment with these and decide which ones you want, right? So now let me go back up here. I'm going to twirl a couple of these closed real quick, light. Let's go to that rock poster pack we made. This is another one that you could have chosen. You get to choose one, please, to download for free. But I'm going to send everybody who attended today live a second code. So you'll be able to get that. And let's go to rock posters. So here, let's try Gold Crush Filmic. Gold Crush. Filmic is giving it that bleached feeling of the chemical process of film. Golden Fade. Golden Fade Filmic. Golden Sun. Ooh, that's nice. Golden Sun Filmic. I really like that. Look at the hair. Look at the richness of the blacks and the golds. Look at how overdone it is. So again, if you haven't figured it out, fade. Back off the strength, fade, blend. Ooh, a little more color in the saturation. And let's just get a little lower contrast. That works for me. Simple portrait vignette. And we'll just come on up here and I'm just going to do a gentle vignette, but move the center to where I want the eye guided. And I'm just going to blend that back. And now it's stronger. And for Mylio specifically, when you go to save, you'll actually see an option here where you could choose display. And that will actually put it right next to the raw file over in Mylio and stack it. Otherwise, like other editing tools, you'll see things like a custom name or, oh, this is the one that went through Radiant. So you can actually do that. So we've got these great presets. So I'm going to say display. And instead of putting off a huge file, I'm going to go the middle of the road. I'm going to go PNG here, which is a nice high quality file. And I can choose that. That works well. And I'm not going to change the size or anything. I'll just click save. By the way, I don't suggest you check this box, use these settings without asking. That's really just going to like do the last settings always. But if you did by mistake, under the file menu, you could choose save as, and that brings this dialog back up. All right, let's save this. There we go. And I can close the photo and let's switch on over. Now, notice it scanned it and there it is. Like I can see here that it put the file in right there with the image itself. So it actually brought that new edit in and stacked it and let me work with it. So you can use this here as an external editor. And that display was for the person who asked about Mylio. We built that in, so it was easy to switch on over. So all of these tools work great with Radiant. Anybody can use this as an external editor. I'm going to do one more picture, but I want to answer a couple of questions. Let's go to a landscape, maybe. Let's see here. Actually, we'll do some flowers. These are fun and a nice gentle thought of spring, which is coming up here. And we'll start with quick edit. But before I do, let me take a look at the Q&A. So thank you, Lou. That's very kind. Thank you and have a great holiday season, you too. And the Lightroom workflow, I think we just showed that to you, Dave. So thank you. And can favorite LUTs and looks from other programs be imported? So we earlier talked about how we don't officially support bringing in lookup tables, but it's discussed in our community and there's some stuff in the user manual that will help you with that. Long story short, you have to have a cube file LUT that's in the Adobe Iridas format that is a bit depth of 16, 16 on the depth side. Then it will work. There's a little bit more to it, but that's the basics. And if you know how to do that, then great. If you don't, I don't want to go into that here because it's kind of advanced, but some people do know how to use it. There are tools to help you convert things. Like there's a great tool from John R. Ellis that can convert Lightroom presets into LUTs, so you can bring those in. But we don't have an import tool right now. And anything that you manually put into your library folder that you install, that we don't run through an installer, we don't guarantee it's going to work because we're a software company that's 5 months old with a support team of 4 people, an engineering team of 6 people, and a management team of 4 and a couple of other folks. So we're about a 20-person company and we're a startup. So it's just easier for us right now at this point to keep you on the path that works and we can guarantee works, or at least if it doesn't work, we're responsible for it. But we're not one to hinder your creativity. So if you look in the manual about, looks or presets, we tell you exactly where they're stored and you do you. But if you break it, go back in there, pull them out and relaunch and you should be fine. Okay. I hope, Walter, that answers your question enough. And there's also a great tool out there called IWLTBAP. And they have it's an acronym for I would like to buy a pony, please. The developer is a donationware. They also make their own LUTs, but they have a tool that lets you apply presets on a still image and then convert that to a new lookup table. So it's a fun way to do that. All right, here we go. Let's do this image. And I'm going to hide the film strip. So first up, the Smart preset did a nice job. Flowers and plants. I like it. It brought out some of those colors. I want to point out that we have some adjustments here in the Detailed Edit tab, 2 for Detailed Edit, X to toggle the right tool set, K for color, because C was already taken for crop. And the fidelity adjustment here is amazing for greens. It targets blues and greens, and you can make them richer or more subdued, so they're not overdone. And this is just fantastic to prevent those areas from becoming over-processed. So fidelity is wonderful for targeting blues and greens and purples, and to make sure that they don't get overdone. You'll also see here foliage toning. So I can go after greens and boost them. And we have different recipes here that you can choose from that are going to emphasize some of those colors in the foliage like that. So this is basically doing a really targeted adjustment on some of those greens. And then you can dial the amount of that in just to really affect those areas. And then similarly on the browns or the golds, if you want to, right? And then there's also corrective filters that you can use to warm or cool the entire shot. And so you could pick a global color if you want to introduce a little bit of cast. And these are based on traditional film filters of different sort of settings, warming, cooling, etc. So you can use those. And these are another way of color grading. They're the traditional filters that were there. So you do have foliage and sky toning, and you can use these to target different colors and amounts to make sort of a more targeted adjustment on different zones of vegetation and other things. You'll also see that tint was detected. So this can be helpful. If I'll turn these other ones off for just a second, this can be helpful to identify areas where there was unnecessary color cast. It can be very subtle. There was a little bit here in excess blue, and that pulled it out. There we go. So now that we got the basis in, let's jump on into the color grade 3. And we'll start here. X flips us over, and we're just going to look. And there's all sorts of style. In this case, I'm going to go with the cross effects. Cross effects are cross toning. And cross toning means look on the color wheel, take colors that are opposite on the color wheel, and then apply one of them to the highlights and one to the shadows, so that you're adding color in different zones. So look at these cross effects. They're a lot of fun. They take 2 different colors on the color wheel and target the shadows and the highlights separately. They are so great at creating these emotional feelings. Now, some of them are going to be too strong to begin with. And we have 3 groups. All of these are in the essentials category. So if you signed up for the free toolkit membership, you can download one of these packs each month for free. You're going to be able to choose one essentials pack for free. And we have way more looks packs than presets packs. I think now you guys understand why. But you can find something that's working for you, right? And so these are a lot of fun. I'm going to go back to this nice one here. I really like that feeling. I think these pinkish and blues are the right ways to go. That feels fantastic. It's too strong, but I like the aging feeling it's doing. So now what I'm going to do is play with the contrast. Stronger, lighter. Oh, that lighter just feels like a beautiful aged photograph. Okay, more color, less color, little less. Stronger style, lighter style. Well, lighter is actually what we want here. It's a subtle transformation without width. See, we just gently push the blues and the pinks. Now, let's go in and apply our vignette. Move the center where it needs to be. And I'm going to say on the inside here, bring out the vibrance a little bit. And on the outside edge, don't get so aggressive with darkening. Let's just make it a subtle bit darker and pull down the highlights more on that outside edge. So instead of darkening the shadows, let's darken the highlights a bit so it's a more natural vignette. There we go. I like it. Just a subtle change. And remember, you can tweak the develop up or down or hide all your tabs. Shift tab hides everything, right? Or tab key. So tab will hide, shift tab will cycle tabs, right? Tab key hides. That's why you have these sliders. A little more develop, a little less develop, a little more color grade, or a little less. And you can really focus on that image. You can go split screen, side by side, zoom in, go to 100% and really study the transformation. and these two sides stay matched. So you can look at what you did. And I like how we brought out the pinks and the purples and the blues and the greens and have just a stronger feeling of color, but it's not universal. We didn't just boost the color. We enhanced the color and the shadows and highlights differently. And that's why it feels natural still, but beautiful. All right. I have talked way too much. I really appreciate you guys coming out. We did record this. And for those of you who stayed here for this entire hour and a half, 40 minutes, thank you. I think you could tell I'm super passionate about this topic. Just to close things out there after we take a look at that live edit, remember your workflow is this. We use scene detection up front to analyze the photo and identify the contents. And then we apply a smart preset. Radiant Pro is for unedited photos. Radiant Subtle is for pictures you've already edited. So if you already open stuff up, and we play a game in the office called Better or Worse. Go ahead and take pictures that you've dealt with, that you've loved, that you've made years ago, like the ones that are over here in my office that are on the back wall, and open them up and go, oh my gosh, it looks better. That's what Radiant Subtle is for. You can run it on edited photographs and you will see color cast that you missed. You'll see muddy shadows that it can fix. Please try it. And we really would appreciate if you tell your friends. We don't have a giant advertising budget. We rely on word of mouth. So if you guys can tell other people, if you're in photo clubs or social media, we appreciate it. And that last set there, smart presets, is the My Smart Presets. That's where you go in and tweak the settings. And then every time it recognizes plants and flowers or portrait, it will use the settings that you assigned. And if you stick with some of those auto exposure and some of the other settings that are intelligent, it can adapt to different conditions. Quick Edit Controls let you enhance things quickly and has the core tool set right there. The Detailed Edit is where you'll find tone, color, details, and portrait tools. This is the developed module of other products with way more smart tools and things you'll find nowhere else. And then now the new color grading tools. Color grade for mood, then use the graduated filter to guide the eye, and the finishing tools to polish the image. All right. Thank you for that. A couple people have been asking some other questions. Remember, we have the forum. We currently work as a plugin for Photoshop, Lightroom, and PaintShop Pro. We have applied and we're approved for the Capture One plugin program. So that'll be going into development next year. I don't know of a release date. And we're trying to bring the Photoshop plugin to more platforms. Some of you keep asking about Affinity Photo. If any of you know anybody at Affinity who will return a phone call or respond to one of the 16 emails we've sent about getting approved as a plugin, we'd love that. So they suck at replying to emails, or they just don't want us. We don't know. But that's why we're not on Radiant. Okay. And as you saw, it can work as an external editor for Mylio Photos, Capture One Today, On One. Anybody can send to this. And make sure you check those specs. Remember, if you are on Windows and you haven't updated the RAW module, please do that. We have instructions, and there's all those languages. Okay. If you guys had any more questions, put them in the Q&A. Be happy to tackle it. Chad as well. And I really appreciate you guys coming out for this webinar. We'll get the recording posted next week. If you haven't done so, head on over to the community. You'll find other tutorials up there. You'll find great opportunities to let us know what's on your mind. You'll find official updates like the complete release notes about this update and all the news. And we try very hard to keep you informed, and we listen to you in the community. So like I said, most of these bug fixes have come from people taking the time to file bug reports or giving us feedback. Like, for example, I realized that even though JPEG 92, which is better than Adobe's JPEG, is the right compression settings to use, a bunch of people were freaked out by the JPEGs getting smaller than their camera. And they thought we were throwing away quality while we were just applying standard modern compression. So that got posted. A couple people weighed in. And you know what? We got it fixed. And here's another example, right? So I don't know if you're here today, but Mike Bedford was complaining about the color grading tools being a little bit cluttered. And we were already working on this, but he was complaining. So we fixed up some things and we got some of the spacing cleaned up, and and Roby and Mike shared some of their opinions about what they didn't like. And we were already working on it, but it helped validate it. And then we shared some mock-ups of what this was going to look like. And they responded and we had back and forth. And you know what? Then it came out. So welcome to a new way of making software. So our company is owned by photographers. We're only making software for photographers or people who love their photos. And thanks. So I appreciate it. And thank you, Mark, for coming. And thank you, Patrick, as well. Patrick, I hope I said that right. And thanks, guys, for all the comments. I'm sorry we went so long. I'm super passionate on this, but for those of you who hung here this long, thank you again. Happy holidays, and may you spend time with your family. And from our team to yours, thank you for believing in our company. We really appreciate it. And Alaya posted a letter and shared some photos from his recent trip to Japan, as well as some thoughts on the new upgrade. So Alaya is our CEO.